Welcome back to the Tech Leaders Talk podcast, where experts and leaders discuss the industry and hard-earned career wisdom with your host, Barry Newkirk. Today's guest is James Brown. James is the founder and consulting principal at Solid Cyber Advisory and Solution Services, LLC, delivering cyber success to organizations of all sizes in public and private sectors. Before that, James was the Chief Information Security Officer, or CISO, for the state of South Carolina, where he led cybersecurity, cyber technology services, risk management, and multi-disciplinary response coordination. James also served as agency CISO for the South Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. He served as committee chair on the statewide Cloud Technology Security and Architecture Review Board. But it was James's time as a soldier in the Army through numerous stateside and overseas assignments which developed his steadfast dedication to mission success through leadership, accountability, and continuous team development. James is a graduate of Limestone University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer and Information Systems Security and holds the Certified Information Systems Security Professional Credential.
We are very pleased to welcome good friend, collaborator, colleague, James Brown to the Tech Leaders Talk podcast today. I know this is going to be an exciting conversation, and James is an amazing communicator and has had quite the run. So, James Brown, welcome to the Tech Leaders Talk podcast.
Thank you, Barry. Glad to be here and such. I hope I live up to that intro, particularly the communicator piece and such, because if you ask my wife, that's definitely not the case.
Well, I mean, I just read the introduction just as you wrote it for me, so I hope that was correct.
Checks in the mail.
That's right. That's right.
Just don't cash it till first of next month, though.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've been working with you for a long time, so I know about that. So, James, we're just going to jump in and kind of before we do, you know, our listeners are typically junior to mid-level technology professionals. We are trying to help folks like yourself around the country tell their story in a creative and transparent way so that those folks new in their career, mid-level in their career, can see themselves in your trajectory. So we're just here to have a conversation. So let's start at the beginning. How'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up? Tell us about your family life, early education. Just kind of give us a picture of James in the early years.
You know, honestly, I grew up in that really fantastic middle generation. What do they call it? The Gen Xennial and such, which is, I guess, a micro generation. Born between 77 and 81. I was born in 1979, so I hit the sweet spot right there. I was born in the Philippines to an Air Force parent. My dad was in the Air Force for, 22 years, I think it was. And my mother was Thai, and spent a little bit of time overseas traveling with them, but I was very young at the time. My dad was very close to retirement. He retired in 86, I believe it was. And we settled in Tampa, Florida. So for all intents and purposes, Tampa, Florida, go Bucks, is my home.
So my father grew up in Tampa. What part of Tampa did you guys live in?
So South Tampa. Right outside of MacDill Air Force Base, because, my dad being in the Air Force for 22 years, he had to have access to a commissary, to a BX, and a Class 6. All right? You got those things, and you are a veteran that's ready to go.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. I spent a lot of time in Florida over the years, and Tampa is my favorite big city in Florida for sure. Not even close. I still have family that lives a little bit north of Tampa in Zephyr Hills, and my dad grew up in Ybor City back in the day, as they say.
Ooh.
So yeah, a lot of colorful stories from Greater Tampa, as I know that you can share as well. I love it down there. Now, the family. So, were you an only child? Do you have siblings?
Oh no! I've got. I was middle child.
Oh,
middle child syndrome, if you will. I've got an older sister and a younger brother.
Okay.
Typical older sister, somewhat overbearing and such. But here's the thing: if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't see my family as much as I do, because she really, drives the point home about us needing to stay in touch, stay in contact, and visit each other and such. And me and my brother, we take the easy route. We just let her coordinate it, and we show up.
That's called delegation at its finest, right?
That's right. We'll follow the leader, whichever you want.
That's right. Now, so you grew up basically in Tampa, but you went in the military as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I joined, growing up in Tampa, had a, fantastic upbringing. The beauty of the time I grew up and where I grew up, it was just that sweet spot, if you ask me. I mean, playing outside, having a great time, pre-social media, nothing on video and such, no errant or strange recordings out on the interwebs that'll come back and haunt me someday, knock on wood. We were just some troublemaking kids having a good time and such, and, getting our butts whooped on the way home for being out too late and this, that, or the other. It's just a great time. And we had a great neighborhood in Tampa, down in South Tampa, very close knit, as I'm sure you well know, and such. The community there is just really fantastic, and very fortunate to grow up there. Well, fast forward a couple of years as I, got later on in through high school and such. Didn't really know what to do. I was looking left, looking right, looking up, trying to figure out, where the sign was telling James what he was going to do when he grows up, and made that fateful visit to the recruiter. All right, at the behest of my dad, because he said, "Hey, kid, go talk to the recruiter. You might figure something out." If you hear a bit of an accent, my dad's originally from Jersey, so it may float its way in there, but it's just me trying to imitate him. It's nothing that I speak from naturally, if you will.
That's funny.
And he, with that bit of encouragement and with that conversation, I went and talked to a recruiter, and it seemed like a good idea. I didn't really know what I was going to do. I wasn't good enough in sports to get a scholarship anywhere meaningful, and I really wasn't that interested in college. I was just interested in continuing on my teenage years. And I was told that the Army lets you do that. So he said, "You're going to have some crazy times in those barracks, kids. Just be careful."
That's funny. That's funny.
So I joined in 99, and the Army did a lot for me. They taught me, or the Army, I should say, taught me, what it means to have accountability, responsibility, instilled a sense of selfless service, if you will, gave me some responsibility along the way. Of course, I got to do some of those other things I wanted to do, hang from the rafters and have a great time in the barracks and this, that, or the other and such like that. But it really did speed up the maturing process, which is really what I needed.
And how long were you in the military?
Let's see, 99 to 06.
Okay, 7 years. So
yeah.
Where were you stationed?
It was actually a pretty easy road. I joined from Tampa, and then I got on a bus. They drove me up to Fort Benning, Georgia. And that's where I did basic training. But I know it's the home of the infantry, but I was not infantry. I was a signal guy, commo, and everything. And after basic training, went over to Fort Gordon. Spent about 4.5 months there in signal school, learning how to, set up basic networking, FM, HF communications, and the like, and such, and get ready for what may have been a career in the Army, but we'll pivot to that a little bit later. After Fort Gordon, I went to Fort Hood, Texas. Beautiful Killeen, Texas. Not really. No, actually, I had a really great time. in Texas, but let's just say, there's not much to do out there. You're going to drink some beer. You're going to see a lot of cows. You're going to spend a lot of time in the field.
Yeah.
That's what I did at Fort Hood. Spent 2 years there. From there, went to Korea, 2nd Infantry Division, Camp Hovey. Had a great time in Korea. Korea is such a beautiful country, wonderful culture. Unfortunately, because I was in 2nd Infantry Division, didn't get to spend a lot of time out there. But I thought I spent a lot of time in the field at Fort Hood. But good gosh,
yeah,
in Korea, it's just what they do. They're like, no, if you're in garrison, you're in trouble. So we're going to keep you out there training and such to keep the young troops, out of the brig, if you will, or avoiding potential UCMJ action.
I hear that.
Really a great time. From there, I got deployed. My unit got deployed actually from Korea over to Iraq.
Okay.
So I spent a year in Ramadi.
Wow.
And that was intense, I must say, and really something that caused me to grow and mature at a extreme pace, because everything that you train for up to that point becomes real. You start remembering things. You start thinking about, the guy or the gal to your left or your right, and the folks that look to you for guidance, and they expect you to have that maturity and that wherewithal to keep them focused and alive. So that year in Ramadi was definitely fast paced, but a rapid growth environment for my personal development, my professional development, and such, and really created some lifelong bonds during my time there and such with people that I will care about and think about for the rest of my entire life.
Oh, I'm sure. And so am I right in that you got out of regular duty and went into the National Guard, or you went full time in the National Guard or something like that? So
after I got back from Iraq, I spent about 8 months in Fort Carson, Colorado, because that's where our unit got sent back to, because they weren't going to send us back to Korea. So they resettled the unit in Fort Carson, Colorado, another beautiful place. And then from there, I separated, got my honorable discharge, have my DD-214 in hand, and was ready to go out and take on the world. It's a challenging world out there. I spent some time in Southern Illinois. That's where my ex-wife, her family's from, and that's the mother of my son Gabe, and we settled there to try and figure out what was next. And anytime that you find yourself looking for a job, it's basically the resume shoes. Here, take it, and such. Any takers, any bites, any nibbles, anything. Feel the line, all right? Any interest? Interest came in the form of a call from a lieutenant in the National Guard. I'm sitting there just relaxing, my mother-in-law's house, and she goes to answer the phone. She goes, "Hey, James, there's some lieutenant on the phone for you." All of a sudden, I'm thinking like, oh my goodness, am I getting called back? What's going on? I've been sitting around for the last month and a half getting fat and enjoying life. What is going on here? Oh my goodness. I take the call. Hey, how you doing, James Brown? It turns out she was the hiring manager for a job that I applied for. All right. And as she was talking through the job, she kept saying, "Hey, you applied for this BI manager position and such." And me, being new to this whole process, I just kept saying, "Yes, fantastic, outstanding. Yes, absolutely." And she said, "Well, we'd like you to come up and have a conversation with us and see if you're a good fit." And lo and behold, she gave me the address. We set up a time. And this was my real first interview post-Army.
Wow.
But I want to go back to the conversation because she kept saying VI manager, VI manager. I know what the heck that was. VI, I was racking my brain, like, VI, what is this? And I'm going through all the jobs that I applied for. I didn't know what the heck it was. And I get there, they hand me a copy of the posting and my application. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Oh, okay, VI, Visual Information Manager. And I'm like, okay, that's sounds interesting. I looked through it. Okay, that looks like something I feel qualified for. Hence why I applied for it. It was in the telecom branch, which is an area that I had pretty good familiarity with due to my time in the Army and such like that, communications and such. I ran lines, up and down, Texas, Korea, and Iraq. So that was kind of my wheelhouse. Well, after a little bit of a conversation with the hiring manager and then her director, who was a full bird colonel, they offered me the job. And I packed everything up and moved to Springfield, Illinois, home of the Joint Force Headquarters for the Illinois National Guard. Visual information, as I come to find out, was related to video teleconferencing and such, media production, photography, and with a few dibbles and dabbles in AV purchasing and such like that. So I got a lot of really good experience kind of working on some of the ins and outs of federal service because it was a federal job, but because it was for the National Guard as a technician, it was dual status. So I went to work in uniform every day, but I got paid on a GS pay scale.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed that job. And the year that I spent in that, I look back and I value because it got me out of my comfort zone. All right. And luckily, after about a year in that job, I got to transition to my comfort zone.
When I went in the military, I had one of the major drivers for me was somebody that was my fraternity advisor who was full-time South Carolina National Guard. And I talked to Bill on a pretty regular basis, and he retired from doing that. And so I have great appreciation for that. That's cool, man. That's cool. So what happened after that? How'd you get to South Carolina?
Right after that little stint as the visual information manager, I was kind of prepping and grooming for a trend, or being groomed, if you will, for a transition over to a newly created billet within the organization as an information assurance manager. Because if you look at my background in the military and stuff, I dealt with ComSec, I dealt with networks, I dealt with this fledgling area of focus and expertise, information security, or as they call it at the time, information assurance, and such. So just in conversation, we kind of gravitated towards me taking that role. Now, of course, I still had to apply for it because it was a new billet. You have to go through the competitive process and such. And fortunately, I came through fully qualified and was selected as the state's information assurance manager. That was a fantastic role. Talk about being at the forefront of information assurance, information security, which would both eventually become what we talk about as cybersecurity, or what we reference as cybersecurity today. It was program level, it was system level, and such. I had my hand in a little bit of everything. I was a part of the accreditation process for our systems there in Illinois, both classified and unclassified. And I was a part of the initial foray into NIST compliance for the organization and such. So when I say it was truly exciting, it really was. It was a very exciting time to be in information security and information assurance because everybody was just trying to figure it out. Everybody was trying to figure out what they needed to do to secure themselves against this growing adversary that we couldn't point to, all right, and identify in any meaningful way.
So you left Illinois and came to South Carolina. Is that correct?
I spent 4 years in that information assurance manager role. And to be perfectly honest with you, I thought I was done with the military when I got off of active duty. And I was just ready for a change.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do the weekends anymore. I wanted to, kind of branch out and just, be James. And such, civilian James. Well, little did I know that weekends in uniform would be a welcome break from weekends working for the private sector. But that's a whole other tangent, which I'm sure you know very well. Through my time there, I got a couple certifications. I got my Security Plus because DoD 8570 came out. Everybody had to get certified. I got my CISSP during that time. And all of these things made me very marketable and such. My time and experience in the military and working for the National Guard, which I consider pseudo-military, but I'm more liken it to federal service because it was really targeted at that federal civilian type workload capacity. Mm-hmm. It wasn't as mission oriented as well. We just made sure stuff ran. But when I made that transition, I wasn't really sure what to expect. I just put my resume together. I put it out there and I said, let's see what happens. Well, that was an exciting time to be on the market because I think I posted my resume like Friday, and then Monday I was getting calls. Like, wait a second, information assurance, information security, Sec Plus, CISSP, come on down.
Yeah.
And I ended up accepting a position as a contractor at Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina right here, who really kind of helped hone my skills. I thought I knew what I was doing, and I thought I was good at what I did and such. But Blue Cross Blue Shield, working for them and their maturity of process and their very diverse portfolio of technology-based services that they provide, was just it created a sense of awe in me just looking at the complexity of the systems that they built and supported, or that they deployed in support of such a diverse portfolio, right. And everything. I mean, they have a really well-oiled machine there and such. So again, another really great growth opportunity for me because it introduced me to the pace and, dare I say, velocity that the private sector operates at.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I have friends who work at other Blue Crosses around the country, whether it's in North Carolina or Idaho or various other places, Florida. And a lot of people don't know that Blue Cross of South Carolina is really a technology leader in the Blue Cross family across the country. And it's really one of the largest and most well-run IT organizations inside of all the Blues that, there's probably 100 to 150,000 employees at the Blues across the country, James. So, to be at the epicenter of, that technology leadership is probably a great asset to you.
Absolutely. Because working there really introduced me to the concept of technology as an enabler of the business. Mm-hmm. Because without that technology, constantly A, fulfilling its mission, mm-hmm. B, seeking out opportunities to improve, mature, and facilitate the optimization of those processes and such, you're going to find yourself behind the power curve almost immediately and such. So technology as an enabler of business is probably my key takeaway from my time at Blue Cross Blue Shield, because it allowed me to see it firsthand and then channel that into the rest of my career.
And so my understanding is that you were at Blue Cross for 4.5 years, give or take. And then what was your next stop?
State government. Funny, if we look at the progression there, active duty military, federal service as a federal technician, civilian employee, private sector, and then state government and such. I'm not sure what's next in the hierarchy, if you will, of employment milestones and such. But I think I hit all the biggies. When I made the transition over to state government in the latter part of 2015. And that was a fantastic opportunity to be the Chief Information Security Officer for South Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, or SC Medicaid. I think that that role, the timing was almost perfect. That position was posted, and it aligned specifically, almost to a T, with my career up to that point. Because I worked in the federal space, I dealt with the risk management framework and the system authorization process and such. SC Medicaid at the time was going through that, or pursuing that. They were doing a massive overhaul of existing technology that has been in place, for years beyond mine and such. And as they were pursuing that digital transformation, that system transformation, they needed to, in parallel to that, pursue system authorization and ensure that they were operating in a secure and compliant manner with CMS requirements, which were FISMA based, and that was my wheelhouse and such. That was my comfort zone in terms of body of work thus far. So it was just a natural fit, and I was very fortunate to come across that job, put in, compete for it, win it, and spend some time there, really doing some fantastic work. Not only for South Carolina, but with some really fantastic folks.
Yeah. There's a lot of great folks who are in that orbit. And after you left Medicaid, you were there about 2.5 years, give or take, and then you went to the overall state level for CISO, correct?
Yes, and that was a heck of a jump, I must say. Working for Medicaid, you're kind of, from a state agency perspective, you're the 800-pound gorilla in the room. All right, you got billions of dollars. All right, in terms of budget and spend, because you run one of the largest programs, in any state environment and such. Medicaid is one of those programs that reaches and supports some of our most vulnerable populations and such. So transitioning from that over to the state level, in my mind, was going to be fairly straightforward, because the size and complexity of that program, plus my work experience, I felt set me up for success and being able to hit the ground running at the state level. But nothing really prepares you for that. Simply because you have to have such a broader view at the state level. You have to be able to extract yourself from the individual program-specific needs and components of any particular ask, request, or challenge that you're facing, and then figure out how to create something that is meaningful and impactful across a broad spectrum of agency and or entity consumers of that particular service. There is no one mission at there, other than, of course, the overarching, secure state systems and data and such. But making sense of that and ensuring that every action that you're taking, every word that you're saying, every document that you're publishing, pushing out and such creates a rising tide scenario across that broad base is something that you never really get truly prepared for until you're in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a huge job. I mean, I don't think people really appreciate the role of chief information security officers, but certainly at a portfolio of organizations like the state handles. I mean, when I compare it to some of our commercial clients or some of my commercial customers and try to relate that difference, and they, it's like, this $1 billion division, this $4 billion division. I mean, and you have, not oversight, but influence on all of that. And it's just if you cobble it all together, it's a massive sized organization in the commercial space is the equivalent. So that's a huge job. I mean, that's a really huge job.
Yeah, I would venture to say, that kind of analogy and overview of decisions at that level or program components at that level within the commercial space and such is very accurate, because again, everyone's going to come to you asking for something. All right. You're going to constantly be surrounded by those in need. All right. Those looking to exert or impose their will or go their own direction and such like that. Everyone has to have a voice. You're the ear for that voice and such. And then you have to extract yourself from that, collect yourself, all right, and then put forth something that's meaningful and impactful to all. You're never going to be in a situation where everybody's happy and such, but hopefully you can realize some benefit and deliver some benefits across the board and minimize, all right, those unhappy folks out there.
Sure. Let me go back a little bit. I mean, you talked about your dad being in the military and then your service in the military. Who are some influencers, some mentors? Can you talk a little bit about some of those folks who kind of helped you along the way?
I'll start right at the beginning. My dad, being, a military father, we didn't live in a terribly strict environment. People think military and think very strict and rigid and such. I like to look back at my upbringing and think of it as very efficient and such. Everything that we did had to have a purpose. One of my dad's favorite things to say was, "Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? You got nothing better to do with your time, kid?" And such. And, that as a mantra kind of has stuck with me. Like, why am I doing this? All right. Does this benefit me, my goal, or those I'm seeking to help and support and such? Now, obviously that has matured over the years, but it always goes back to why are you doing that? All right. So you got to be intentional with your time and you got to be efficient with it, because you're not going to be able to please everybody and such. So when you do something, do it with purpose. All right. And I must say, I really did get that from my dad. Now, I told you I played high school sports. I played high school football and such. No Al Bundy stories here. No 4 touchdowns in a single game or anything like that. No Polk High Wall of Fame. But I had a coach, Coach Mike DePue, when I was in high school. He is somebody that I think about fairly often. Being my position coach and really a mentor to me throughout my high school years, helped kind of shape me into a better functioning, more compassionate and caring individual because of the compassion and caring that he provided not only me, but my teammates and such. Now, at the time, I didn't think that, At the time, I just thought I was getting yelled at. All right. But you look back and you're like, wow, he really cared. He cared about me. He would pop in my class and, make sure I was doing my work and such. If I get called to the office and I'm getting in trouble, he'd bust in there like, what the heck did he do? And such. And it's folks like that make an impact on you, that really shape the person that you become. And I appreciate that time and that care and effort that he put and poured into me. It's something that I try and do with folks that I work with and around, and folks that work for me. I try and pour something back into them and such, because, like I said, everybody needs some care, concern, some empathy in their life and in their particular situation. Now, as I kind of progress into my professional life and everything, I mean, there's just a laundry list of leaders throughout the Army that I can point to and say, that was a fantastic leader. All right. But, given the time frame and such, I don't want to spend all night with you on this one, although I could. I'll reference one. He was a major. He was my section OIC. And Major Ivan Montanez. He fast-talking Puerto Rican guy, fantastic, and such. He had this saying to me that really made me and those around me feel empowered. He always said, the best decisions are made at the lowest level. He would look at me, because he was with me in Korea. He didn't go on deployment with us. He actually got orders back before that. But he would always say that. He would come in, no matter what we were doing, all right? And he would give the whole shop, whole commo section, a briefing on what we had going on and such like that. And then he would go and ask us, hey, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think we should do here? Stuff like that. And he would always reiterate, the best decisions are made at the lowest level. All right. And then as I progressed in my career, I carried that mantra with me. All right. I would always ask my team members, hey, what do you think? Because if I'm abstracted from the situation, I can't make a meaningful decision on it. All right. I've got to bring in that information, listen to my team members, listen to the folks that are working with, around, and for me. All right. And take that into account and trust that their proximity to the issue at hand, the challenge that we are trying to overcome, is something that they have in hand, and also trust that if they need something, I would be able to identify it and assist and such, because you can never really take over someone's job and such. You can't do someone's job for them. All right. You got to allow that process to unfold, and you got to allow that growth to occur and everything. And that statement it stays with me to this day. The best decisions are made at the lowest level. Because again, at certain levels, you just find yourself too abstracted from the issue at hand.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you brought that up, because I haven't interacted with you for several years and had folks from our team work on your team. I can see that the after effects of that learning from Major Montanez in how you manage and lead people. I get that. I totally connect with that. What do you think is the best leadership quality that you bring to the folks or the teams that you are in charge of, James? Do you think is your calling card?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna tell you a story here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
When I won't call out the individual's name and such, but when I left my last role, someone came in to my office, had a conversation with me, and basically said, what are we going to do now? You were like our lion.
Wow.
And I thought about that for a second. A lion. He goes, yeah, fearless. And as I thought about that for a moment, I'm thinking, okay, how many rooms did I bust into? How many times did I open my mouth when I probably shouldn't have? How many times did I go against the grain and such? Or on the positive side of that, how many times did I just make a meaningful impact and inspire this person to feel better? Now that's the textbook theory of him um, uh, referring to me as a lion and such, but it was probably the latter, the former part. Me just busting into rooms and open my mouth when I shouldn't and such like that, and everything, because I'm one of those folks that um, I engage. All right, if there's an issue at hand, I don't want to send some weird sneaky email or anything like that. I want to get up, walk down the hallway, knock on the door, sit down, have a conversation, and figure it out. If that's not possible, I want to pick up the phone, have a conversation, and figure it out. A chaplain in the military once said, email and text are information, all right? Phone calls, video conferences, interactive chat are communication. All right. Spend your time communicating. Don't spend your time passing information.
Yeah.
And again, that's just that's my style.
Yeah.
It is open lines of communication. And if I had to align that with, say, a textbook leadership style, I would say lead with courage, because you have to be willing to get up and engage in that uncomfortable conversation and such, particularly if there's a disconnect.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. You bring a lot of energy to whatever room you're in, obviously, and that engagement, that energy is palpable. So that's a good thing. What's your proudest professional accomplishment so far, James? I mean, you're a fairly young guy, but you've been able to do a lot of cool things, travel the globe. What's your proudest professional accomplishment so far?
So looking back, there's a lot of positions and such that I've ascended to. All of those are fantastic accomplishments and such. But really, I would just point back to my time in the Army. Prepping for deployment, prepping a team for deployment, taking that section, those young soldiers on deployment, which, I mean, when I say young, I mean, I was in my mid-20s, they were in their early 20s. But you know how the Army is, all right? You're an old man at an early age.
That's right.
And such. If you were there 5 minutes before the other guy, all right, you were senior, all right?
That's true.
But, honestly, as a section sergeant and for having troops in my section, under my watch, under my care, and everything. It's something that you're never really truly prepared for until you're actually there.
Mm-hmm.
Much like this, you don't know what to expect. All you know is that this person, all right, this soul, all right, to your left and to your right, all right, they need you. They depend on you, all right. And the same could be said about you. You need them. You depend on them. And it's up to you guys to figure out how to get through this thing together. And the fact that we got the deployment order from Korea, which nobody was expecting. All right. We spent our time preparing for the deployment. I actually went ahead. I was on what was called an advanced TAC team. So I was in country about 21 days before the rest of my section, and everything, kind of setting up comms and helping establish, operations and command and control in country while the rest of the unit was kind of deploying in or filtering in if you will, because it was it was an undertaking, I must say. But just working through that at that age, all right, and feeling the camaraderie growing as a team together, and then ultimately coming back as a team. It's my proudest moment. It's the biggest accomplishment of my life. All right, I can't say enough about how much I love those guys. Proudest accomplishment of my professional life.
Yeah, gotcha.
Kids don't hear that, but yeah, it really is something special. Military service, being forward deployed, and in those situations that you constantly trained for, and everything. It's really something special. It's something that, again, will stay with me forever, because I love those guys. I love what we did, and such, and I love that we accomplished it together.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. I had the benefit of being in Desert Storm early on, and I can't describe it to somebody who hasn't been deployed. You can tell them, but they don't get it because they haven't experienced it. And then I think that's where the camaraderie comes, regardless of branch of service, is just having that experience is just unlike anything else you'll ever experience the rest of your life. So I have great respect and appreciation for that. As we wrap up, let me transition yet again. What are you're in cybersecurity, you're nationally recognized authority on cyber. You've done a lot of cool things in cyber. You've been on the forefront, as you talked about early on, in what I call the cyber community. What do you think is going to happen in the next 5-10 years as you look into your crystal ball, James?
Oh, wow.
What does technology look like? What does cyber look like? What are your thoughts about the future?
I would venture to say technology is going to do what technology does. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to rapidly expand and such. Citizens, people, all right, are going to continue to demand, faster, easier access to the information that they feel is theirs, all right, and that they feel improves their lives. And it's up to us, the security professionals, the technology professionals, to ensure that it's there, it's ready, it's accessible, and ultimately it's secure, right? So I would venture to say over the next 5 years, I anticipate a shift in focus from the technology front to the partnership front. How do professionals, all right, that are in this field, all right, get out of their comfort zone, all right, expand their bubble, reach out, all right, and have a conversation with the other cybersecurity professional, the other technology professional, the application developer, and such, and build lines of communication and such so that we can better collaborate, all right, on the delivery or the development and delivery of the services that our constituents, and I'm not saying constituents in the public sector sense, I'm saying constituents in any consumer of a service that a technology supports. There's expectation there and such. And we're not going to achieve it in what I like to refer to as silos of excellence. We got to break down some of these walls. We've got to go knock on some doors. We got to sit down and have some conversations and figure out how we can better partner towards the delivery of secure, reliable services to our constituents.
That's really insightful. I think it makes me think of all the research that was done after the 9/11 attacks and how all these agencies had different information and they never communicated because they were in silos of excellence. And all of that could have been prevented and avoided had there been cross-pollination of data and information and had some conversations, somebody opening up the door and being a lion and saying, hey, man, let's have this conversation, so I get that, and I appreciate that.
Well, Barry, I'm going to give you a nod here. All right,
Lord.
Because I can't tell you how many times over the last couple of years I've been in a conversation with you, and then you extract from that conversation somebody that I should talk to, and then you set it up. So thank you, Barry.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Last couple of questions I wanted to ask you. Where are you learning from these days, James? Are you a podcast guy? Do you read books? Do you listen to Audible books?
I would venture to say you got to be a lifelong learner within cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. The news feeds. I follow CISA daily. I always track updates to the latest exploitable vulnerabilities and such like that. They have prominence, if you will, in a lot of the conversations I have with folks around security processes and program maturity. Mm-hmm. Because managing your assets, your systems, and the vulnerabilities that exist on your systems and software is really foundational to establishing good cyber hygiene and maintaining it. So I follow CISA almost daily. It is my my daily dose of what's happening in cyber. So I don't say that like I reach out and do it. No, I get the email feed and such. I follow technology trends with regards to what's new. Everybody right now seems to be trying to reinvent the wheel and repackage something that a lot of folks already have, which again is why I mentioned the whole partnership piece. Because the only way that you're really going to have a good understanding of what you have and how you should be using it is by extracting yourself from potential tunnel vision and bringing in that extra opinion, that outside opinion or other thought leader, all right, within this space to evaluate how you're doing things and help you identify ways that you could be improving. Because I would venture to say a lot of the folks that I talk to, they have all of the technology in place. They have the capabilities there and such. They don't need to make huge investments on that front. Where they need to make investments is on the process front and on the partnership front. How do we bring in folks that can help optimize these things that are already in place, or help redirect, all right, investments as well as process improvements that may need to be made on things that, again, a lot of folks already have. There's so many folks that have stuff just sitting on the shelf. This piece of technology they bought that, hey, that thing that we bought 5 years ago, are we using it? And such. Well, yeah, are we using it right? These are simple questions that you can ask, and you can find some really good opportunities for improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, James Brown, we're going to wrap it with that. I appreciate your investment of time and insight and just experience into our listeners this afternoon. And just thank you for both your service in the military as well as in all the other places that you've served. And I love the analogy of being a lion. I love the comment of Major Martinez, the best decisions are made at the lowest level. I love that. And I just so want to say thank you for everything that you've done for us. And thanks for spending some time here with us on the Tech Leaders Talk podcast. Absolutely, Barry. Glad to be back anytime and such, or just glad to have a conversation with you any day of the week, sir. Yeah, man. All right. I love you. I appreciate you. You do a lot for us. You do a lot for the tech community and such. You do a lot for South Carolina. Thanks, bud. I appreciate that. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining us today on the Tech Leaders Talk podcast. Until next time, Tech Leaders, keep talking.